trouble for the first time on Zoom this week. So I think Zoom's having some issues. So all of you had to pop back in just like I did?
Yeah, every single one of us. That happened once before that I've seen, but we'll just give everybody a minute or two here and see if they can't find us again before we go on. I felt bad. Katal had a follow-up question, and now we've lost it in the chat. But if he manages to get back on, we'll just invite him to unmute and maybe ask you.
I did see his question. He was asking for a framework or process, which of course is.
That's a good one.
We've got one person from a 508 number. Is that?
Yeah. Hello, 508 number. Glad you made it back with us.
Looks like we all got booted off.
Yeah.
Wait for a few more. Hopefully they didn't give up on us.
We could just act like, what do you mean? It must have just been you when they come back, right? I know what you're talking about. Must be your connection.
Save the world and establish world peace. Okay. And that is the secret. Well.
Like, well, we're at least live on YouTube again, so we know we're broadcasting there too.
Okay.
How about, can I toss you another question, Todd?
Yeah, just in case this will be recorded and can be merged, I just want to finish the answer to this question. Is the right leading indicator really determines on what the business goal you're trying to achieve. And you know, I love that we're the questioner was looking for those leading indicators. You have to look for what data is available. Sometimes those leading indicators could be monitoring your own internal processes. It may require some other correlated study, as I already mentioned, but I do encourage you not just to manage to the primary goal, but to understand what are those secondary indicators to help you. I call it telemetry. It's the secondary indicator. You can, like the rocket launch, they're monitoring the speed, the altitude, and the pitch. And if there's a problem there, that may spot that they're going to have trouble achieving the goal of getting to the space station, but they can course correct and get back on the path.
Yeah, it sounds like Michael has some good instincts there. He's asking the right questions.
Absolutely.
Here is a question from Mitchell, who asks, when getting feedback from customers, I always find it interesting that there are differences in response when they know who they are talking to. Are there any recommendations or cases when soliciting feedback via an anonymous third party? Is it favorable over soliciting feedback yourself?
Well, it really depends on the type of feedback, but if for my understanding of the question, I can envision getting feedback about a feature set that we're considering adding or a product roadmap that we're considering. This is one of those kind of, I'm from the Southern United States. I call this a bit of a pickle. This is a bit of the awkward situation that comes in when we are you're focused on our customer base as the main channel of feedback about the product. And when you're talking to customers, I mean, who's soliciting the feedback? A product manager, a product marketing manager, but it's somebody from the company that they give money to. And you're soliciting my feedback. And so I'm gonna wanna get as much from you as I can. as much for value for the money that I'm giving you. And they can be very demanding. There can be expectations that they provided you feedback, therefore you are going to do it, one-to-one action. Now, the question was whether it's us asking the question or whether it's some anonymous party. It really comes down to the relationship and whether there is this expectation from the parties that you're soliciting feedback to get things from you, or whether there's not. I mean, you could ask, hire a firm to go show your roadmap, but and there would not be that implicit promise that you're going to take the feedback one way or another. But it really can be solved by setting the expectations of feedback. What we're seeking from you, what we will or will not do. I got myself in trouble earlier in my career when I ran a customer advisory board, and I did not set the expectations clearly up front. And I listened. Oh, that's great. And I wrote down everything. And then months after, when I announced my roadmap, my inbox started to fill up with customers that saying, I told you not to do that. And the thing that I told you to do isn't on the roadmap. And Rose, I did set the expectation accurately. And of course, there's getting feedback from non-customers where they don't have that implicit promise. They don't have that relationship, and they can be a little bit more free and open in their opinion.
So in that instance where the people that you had on the advisory board apparently felt some sort of authority and then felt ignored because you didn't do what they asked, how should you have phrased the invitation then? How do you set that expectation?
Setting the expectation up front that, and in this case, they were also giving up time and their time to provide feedback. And this cab was this is when I worked for a division of IBM, bringing these customers to Austin, Texas, and at their expense. So they really felt invested. It could have been handled with an introduction or part of the invitation that it's feedback. Your advice will be taken and aggregated with other market inputs to influence our roadmap, but not necessarily drive our roadmap. I needed to soften that expectation.
Are there any ethical issues with interviewing about a product, but not telling the interviewees that you are the company that owns the product?
No, it happens all the time. In fact, I worked for Microsoft for 10 years, and coincidentally, about 6 months before I took that job, my wife, a research firm contacted her, and she had some spare cycles, and she agreed to provide feedback to a research firm here in Austin, Texas, on a product. And when she got in there, it was pretty obvious this was a potential new version of Windows.
Okay.
It didn't say the start button, but that was the button that she kind of recognized, modernized.
We're going to call it Blindos.
Yeah.
No relation.
No relation. So, again, what they're trying to do is get that an abstraction layer to try to get more honest feedback, or to try to get away from that bias that we talked about earlier. It can be valuable.
But do you in fact get different answers when a customer knows who you are versus when they don't know who you are? Are you getting more honest answers if they don't know it's you?
Honest, you have, in some cases, a bias, a desire, where others, when it's non-customers, they don't have that investment, and it can impact it. It doesn't always, but it can.
Good.
It's something to consider when you are coming up with your feedback plan about who are the parties that you're going to get feedback from, and know that you're going to get that a little bit more heavy bias and personal objectives from customers, because you are a vendor to them. that you are asking them for money. So they're going to, so I'm not saying not to talk to customers, but perhaps making sure that you get a mix of feedback. And then I would prioritize the feedback from the parts of the market where I'm wanting to take the product, where I'm expecting to meet my business objectives.
Well, Todd, we get so many good questions submitted, and I feel bad that we haven't made it through all of them. Do you have time for one more?
I'd love to.
How about this one? This person asks, I recently joined a new product team in the healthcare space, and with so many moving parts, we are constantly off track. How can I keep a tighter pulse on the process to make sure we remain focused and on target? It's broad, but surely it applies to everybody. What do you think?
It is broad, and you know, as whether it's a healthcare centric product or focused on any other market, whether it's a technology product or some other, we all get focused on execution. Let's go get the work done. Whether it's let's get it built, let's get our marketing campaigns designed and get them implemented, getting sales organizations straight, right? We're very much on getting those things done. But that's an execution of some strategic goal. And we often, even if there is a strategic goal, it is often not well communicated. Strategy should drive execution. It should define what are the right deliverables for us to work on. But, if you ask me as a part of a greater process to deliver X, Y, and Z, and I don't know why it's important, if I don't know how the organization is going to be impacted, how it contributes to the success or the failure, I'm not likely to prioritize it appropriately. And so we often expect that connection between what I'm asking you to do, what other departments to do, that they naturally understand that connection and purpose. And it's almost like, expecting an osmotic process. It's just going to happen. And it doesn't. We believe that the product team is responsible for developing the right product strategy. But a key part of that is then to communicate it sufficiently to the people that need to do the work. I mean, and there's, development needs to understand the product strategy. Who are we going after? What are we trying to achieve? And by the way, let's tie this back to the first question. That's why we've prioritized these features in the backlog. Hey, marketing, you need to know, here's the product strategy. We are going after this new market segment. And these are buyers that we've never targeted before. This is a growth market. It's a huge opportunity to take our business forward instead of just being stagnant. Somebody's got to tell that story and connect those dots for the people who've got to do the work back to the business purpose. And I don't know what the title of that person is, but somebody on the product team that adequately understands the business objectives can then communicate it to the people who have to do the work. And it not only will give them a spring in their step or motivation, as I put it, but it will help them as professionals in their functional groups to figure out, oh, if that's the business objective, here's what those marketing campaigns need to look like. Here's what we need to tell the sales department. And sales, here's who we should be focused on selling to and who we shouldn't be focused. So strategy has to be communicated.
Beautiful. You tied it right back to the beginning with a beautiful bow. That sounds like a wonderful place to end. Todd, thank you so much for your experience and for your brain. Wonderful resource to have you here. We appreciate it so much. Quick shout out for the next in the Pragmatic Institute product chat series. That will be Tuesday, June 23rd, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when we will welcome Charles Topping. He's founder of the Win-Loss Agency and principal facilitator at Market Driven Business. He will be talking to us about what else? Nahito visits, doing them like a pro. You'll want to be there for that. If you don't know what Nahito is, you will absolutely want to be there for that. So join us then. Of course, if you have any more questions, join us for the next Ask Me Anything series. That'll be every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can ask more questions of our wonderful Pragmatic Institute instructors. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody.
weekend.
Cheers.